That's new. Okay. Um, so please note, as this is a public meeting, this meeting is being recorded and will be posted to the City of Beaverton's website. Minutes are still being taken. Please make sure you are muted unless you are the active speaker. Attendees are automatically muted, and for any quick comments, you can hold your spacebar to unmute and release the spacebar to become muted again. Please be aware of items in your video's background which could be offensive or distracting to others. You can select the virtual background in the drop-down list next to the video icon. For our attendees, you can type your questions in the question and answer chat. All questions will be addressed during the public comment time on the schedule. If you would prefer, you can also click the raise hand button to ask your question directly, and we will make sure to come around to you as soon as we are able to. For attendees who are joining by phone, you can raise your hand by typing *9. If we have multiple people waiting to speak, the order of who will be speaking will be put in the chat box. You are welcome to have open discussion in the chat function at the bottom of your screen, but please be aware the chat becomes public record. I will be monitoring the chat, so feel free to let me know if you have any technical difficulties and I can troubleshoot with you.
All right, thank you so much. It is 6:34, so now we're going to call tonight's meeting of the Bicycle Advisory Committee to order. I'm Amanda Koppel, your vice chair, and I'm going to be hosting tonight's meeting, coming live to you from my parents' house in Washington, D.C., where it's currently 9:30 at night. Let's have a quick review of our agenda for this evening. First, we'll be looking at the June minutes, going into our public comment period. Then we'll get a council liaison update. We have an exciting discussion ahead of us to chat about a Pedalpalooza Westside BIPOC ride. We'll be talking about the active transportation plan. We'll be doing a quick overview of MSTIP. We'll then have a city council and annual report discussion. We'll talk about City of Beaverton updates, move into our member comments, and hopefully we will be adjourning by 8:30 Pacific, 11:30 Eastern. So, Jean, would you mind leading us in everyone doing quick introductions?
Okay, I'll go first. I'm Jean Senechal Biggs. I am the staff liaison for the Bicycle Advisory Committee. I'm in the Community Development department where I'm the Transportation Planning Manager.
All right.
Call on. Okay. Go ahead, Amanda.
Oh, I thought you were about to do the roll call, so I wasn't.
Okay, let me pull up the attendees. Let's hear from Corey.
Hey, good evening, everybody. Corey Mcmanus. I'm an ex officio member from TriMet. So if you guys don't remember what that means, I'm basically a representative on the committee from TriMet.
Okay, how about Ananda?
Hi, my name is Ananda Vartana, and I'm an Intel retiree, and I'm a member of the back committee, and I live near Fred Mayor Beaverton, Walker Road. Thank you.
Okay, great. And then how about Annie?
Okay. Hi, I'm Annie. I'm an alternate member of the committee, and I live in the Dennisbourne area and bike everywhere.
Great. Welcome, Annie. Caitlin.
Hi, I'm Caitlin Ahern. It's my second year as a Bicycle Advisory Committee member. I also like to bike everywhere, and it's nice to see everybody, as always.
Great. Okay, how about Israel?
My name is Israel Laurelis. This is also my second year on the BAC, and I live in the Murray Hill area. So this is where I spend most of my time biking, is in this area.
Great, I think Kara's next.
Hi, I'm Carl Urwick. I've been a member since January of 2020, and I live in central Beaverton.
Okay, how about Michael Hashizume?
Hi everyone, Michael Hashizume. I've been on the Bicycle Advisory Committee since 2018, and I live in the Denny Woodford neighborhood.
And then I think last is Nathaniel.
My name is Nathaniel May. I have been an alternate member since this year, and I live in South Beaverton, and my house, clearly the rear faces west.
Okay, great. I don't think I missed anybody. If I missed someone, speak up. Okay, great. I will hand it back to Amanda. I'll pull up the minutes.
Yep. Amanda Koppel. Normally I live on Milliken Way near Nike. So next up, if Jean wouldn't mind scrolling through the minutes from our last meeting, we can have a quick review of that in case you didn't get a chance to read the minutes from your email. All right. With that, do we have a motion to approve our meeting minutes?
I move to approve the meeting minutes from June.
All right. And do we have a second?
Yes, second.
All right. Those in favor of approving our meeting minutes, please raise your hand, or if you're not on video, say yay. All right. Do we have any who do not wish to approve the meeting minutes? Again, raise your hand or say yay or nay, sorry. Any abstentions? All right, Michael, do you have all that down? Great. All right, let's move on in the agenda. Is Councilor Hasan here? Oh, no, sorry, public comment, but I don't see any attendees. Is anybody hiding out there who has public comment to offer? Okay, then indeed, moving on. I don't see Councilor Hasan.
I have her update.
Oh, very good.
Her update. So she and I emailed earlier in the week, and I'll zoom in on this so you can see it. You can read it on screen, and I can read it out loud too, just so we've got it recorded. So she sends her regrets. She is in Texas for a wedding that has events 3 nights in a row, and so she is off having fun there. Visiting with family and friends. So she says she wishes she could be in 2 places. For an update on her end, the council continues to manage the transition as they await Jenny, and that is our new city manager, who is going to be starting with us in August. She is all set. Once she's all set and we elect our 6th councilor, so we'll have 6 councilors and 1 mayor for 7 elected officials, the council can begin planning for their priorities and goals. And this is really going to help set the stage for some of their work in the future. The special elections are September 21st, so just in a couple of months. Some of you may have watched the special meeting that the council had regarding the discussion, sorry, I move things, of fireworks, banning fireworks. And she's saying there was some misinformation about that meeting, and she wants to help everyone understand the challenges of enforcing a citywide ban. And as she says, as you know, the city limits are complicated. Many parts of Beaverton are not. In fact, Beaverton, pockets of Aloha, for example, are mostly not Beaverton. She says it was a good discussion on the matter, and she's hopeful that they can consider planning ahead for next year. And personally, she says she would love to see a bigger show put on in partnership with local agencies or designate areas for firework usage to ensure appropriate and safe use of fireworks. She says, as always, please don't hesitate to email her if you have questions or concerns. Her email is nhasan, Hasan, @beavertonoregon.gov. And she looks forward to catching up with all of us again in August. Great.
All right.
Okay. I also have an update on the Pedalpalooza Westside BIPOC ride.
Oh, perfect.
I have everyone's updates today. So I will say I had a late in the afternoon email from Will Cortez, who is a former Bike Advisory Committee member. And he has an organization, a group that he started, I want to say it was earlier this year, earlier last year, called BikePOC Pacific Northwest. It's a group that does group rides with Black, Indigenous people of color. That's their focus. And this month is, sorry, not this month. All this summer is Pedalpalooza, which is a Portland area summer celebration of cycling. There's events that happen all over the Portland region to just help celebrate riding and have fun and encourage people to get out on bikes. The events are all very much come from people who have ideas and want to organize a ride, and then they can promote them through the Pedalpalooza site. So it's, you know, it's formal and informal. It's a great network to sort of pull together events all across the region. So Will reached out because he is a Beaverton resident, and he's he had the idea for doing a ride that may come from Portland and come into Beaverton as a Pedalpalooza event sometime this summer. He does not have a date yet. He's really, at this point, looking for our input as the BAC on what a BIPOC-focused ride through Beaverton might, where it might go, route. If any of you are interested in participating or being ride leaders, helping to plan the ride, he's looking for that as well. If there's anyone else who wants to join in planning this. I think that's a good, I'm trying to remember what else was in that email we had from him, Amanda, because I know you saw it. Did I miss anything?
Our hope was that whomever would work with Will on this would in turn be connected to the BIPOC community, if at all possible, you know, just to help advance the intent of this ride. But obviously any support that we can give him would certainly be appreciated, especially in planning a ride or getting the word out. Looks like Corey's got a question.
Sorry about that. Someone with mute on the phone. Yeah, I was curious if there was a theme associated with with Will's proposal, and that might influence recommendations from the committee.
As I recall from the emails we had with him, he had mentioned businesses. In particular, if there are businesses, again, sort of a group of people coming on bikes from Portland, either coming over the hill or coming through the tunnel on the Max, and then doing some sort of a route around Beaverton. Both of those were options. He didn't necessarily have a particular theme in mind, but those are sort of some of the ideas that bubbled up. I think it's really such a early idea at this point. I did reach out and connect him with the executive director of the Beaverton Downtown Association. There's a number of BIPOC businesses that we have in downtown Beaverton that it can be a great opportunity to show people, you know, just sort of the great businesses that we have and places that people can come out to Beaverton and see. So the theme really probably is BIPOC, you know, BIPOC businesses or any sort of other kind of BIPOC-focused destinations within Beaverton. Yeah.
I guess if I recall, I think a lot of the Pedalpalooza rides have a theme, and I think you know, people dress up in unique ways. It can, you know, kind of garner some enthusiasm. I wonder if we might brainstorm something like that also as feedback.
Sure. Well, I offered to Will in the email today. I said we will gather input and ideas. I will connect him with any of you if any of you want to participate any further with this, and make that happen after tonight. So I can definitely pass on sort of the theme idea, and having a theme that's really well. I think, Corey, kind of what you're saying is have a theme that's really strong, because that can become a way to build excitement for the ride. Is that a way to sort of capture it? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Anyone else?
Chikin, could you please share the URL for the Pedalpalooza? Because we cannot click here in the chat session.
Work?
No, it did not work for me.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Let's see. Oh, yeah, it's not working. That's so strange.
Yeah.
It's not working
Yeah.
on my end either.
Okay.
Okay, I will send you the updated link.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, lots of fun rides. So
Yes,
I know
yes,
you
yeah.
like going on a lot of rides, Ananda. Yeah.
Yeah.
If you just Google it, you'll find
I
it.
can do that. I can do that. Okay, no problem. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Any further questions or ideas or, you know, feedback that we can give Will at this stage? Any ideas about general parts of town that might be good for a ride?
Oh.
Well, something to consider is possibly making sure that our route begins or ends near one of our MAX stations. So, you know, it makes it a little easier for people that are coming to Beaverton from the city, you know, gives them an easy bike-friendly option if they don't want to ride their bike from Portland to Beaverton to do a ride here. So
I have done that. I put my bike on the MAX. It works
yeah,
really
maybe something in conjunction with like the transit center, just because then they can hop on the blue or a red line. Yes, Caitlin, you've got comment or question.
Yeah, is there, are the old Bike Beaverton routes somewhere? 'Cause that's like maybe a good.
well. Yes, they are somewhere.
Are they on the internet somewhere?
They're yes, I have access to them somewhere, and I can track them down. And I know, I mean, I know Will know. I think Will even mentioned Will knows about those routes, because I think he probably participated in past years. So those are good routes. They're really pleasant rides. So.
And they're more like neighborhoods, right? So if it's businesses, it might
Mm-hmm.
not be like totally.
Yeah,
what?
and right, maybe do both, or maybe they hop on a trail. I mean, there's lots of different kind of bike facilities to see in Beaverton, to see what's out here. And you know, so it's a good suggestion in terms of neighborhoods to see. Okay.
And the Bike Beaverton routes typically start in the library parking lot, and that's, you know, right next to downtown, which is right next to the MAX line.
Yeah.
So I think it could all sort of line up
Yeah.
nicely.
It could all work. Yeah.
The farmer's market, sorry, I like totally jumped in there. The farmer's market's nice. And that's right there.
It is.
It
Yep.
is, but it's also sometimes very tricky to get a lot of people in and out on farmers market days just because of how absurdly crowded it is. I mean, my own suggestion would be we try to avoid conflict with the farmers market, which would mean if we rode on Saturday, the ride probably couldn't start till closer to 2 o'clock-ish or after the market was winding down for the day, or we would have to think about a non-Saturday.
Okay. Or it could be a place to end the ride.
True.
And let people.
Yeah, that's a great idea because they have that
Get food.
youth covered parking area for bicycles at the market in the parking lot. So, you know, folks could even lock up their bike and walk around if they wanted to. Yeah, fantastic point. Kaylin.
I have another one. So, is there like a map of like people of color owned businesses or like Black owned businesses in Beaverton? There's some for Portland. I don't know if that extends.
Not that I've seen. If anybody has done one, it may be the Beaverton Downtown Association. I don't think we've done one at the city. I'm pretty certain we haven't, but yeah. But
is this something
that's another good suggestion.
Is this something the Diversity Advisory Board might be able to give us insight on?
Yes, and I think Will is going to go to that meeting next week.
Okay.
The Diversity Advisory Board meets. I think they meet maybe Monday. So he was ready to go to that. So. Okay. Okay. Well, great.
Any
Anything
further
else?
comments or question? We're still running well ahead of schedule.
Oh. Okay. It looks like we have a guest who's joined us. I see John Ratliff.
That's me. I'm coming in actually as a representative of the Beaverton Committee on Aging, and am just sitting here. I'm a past member of this committee, the Bicycle Advisory Committee, and past vice chair. So I thought I'd come in and say hi and just listen to what's going on.
Good to see you, John.
All right, well, if anybody can think of further comment, we should have plenty of time that we could always take those questions later during member comments. We can always loop back to chat about the ride. So with that, Jean is here to lead us through revisiting the active transportation plan. Over to you.
Great. Okay, everyone. Well, I'm gonna sort of set up these next two items on the agenda for you and explain a bit why these are coming to you tonight. So the active transportation plan is now a little over 3 years old from when City Council adopted it back in February of 2018. And it's our city's really vision for how to improve walking and biking in Beaverton. It was adopted before I joined the city 2 years ago. It's a document that the city has begun implementation of some of the items within it, and I have a little bit more to share about that with you. There is a lot more work that we can be doing in it. And I thought it would be helpful to just give you all an overview of this, because I think looking at sort of who all is here on this committee, so many of you were not on the committee when this plan was adopted, and yet it's such a key guiding document for biking in the city. And I think it's something that it would be good for all of us to spend time looking through it together. I just want to ask, like, who was on the committee when this was adopted, aside from Mike Mulligan? Were any of you on the Bike Advisory Committee? Okay, Amanda was. No, maybe. Yeah, I think you're maybe.
I think I was there right after it got adopted or something. I might
Yeah,
have just missed it, but I know
yeah.
the committee worked a lot on it before I was on there.
Yes, yeah, exactly. Yeah, the Bike Advisory Committee had a lot of input at points along the way in developing the plan. So if you recall, a few months back, we had Anna Slatinsky and Kate McQuillan from our planning division come in. They gave you that nice broad overview about sort of planning, and we talked about transportation in there. Tonight, I really want to talk about the active transportation plan. And I think really it's sort of the first of a conversation that we can have. There's more I think to come back and talk about with you later. Because one thing that's coming up in this next year, the next item on the list is the MSTIP 3F overview. The MSTIP is the Washington County funding program that builds transportation projects all around the county, including in Beaverton. And they're at the point where they're initiating this next round of funding. It's a roughly five-year program that allocates money. Oh, there's John Vogler. That allocates funding all across the county for roadway projects, but also bicycle and pedestrian projects. It covers a lot of things. There'll be places coming up, opportunities coming up in the next year where the county will be doing community engagement and asking people across Washington County for input on their priorities. And I think this is going to be a great opportunity for all of you to weigh in on the types of projects that we would like to see get funded here in Beaverton and really elsewhere in the county as well. And Councilor Hasan, who isn't here tonight, but Councilor Hasan is one of three councilors who have formed a subcommittee to focus specifically on the MSTIP priority process over the next year. So she's very much engaged in this, and I think it will be really helpful for all of you as the BAC to share your input so that it can be forwarded on to City Council, because City Council really has a very direct role in engagement with county staff and county board of commissioners, and how the council will forward priorities for the city of Beaverton onto the county so that it gets included in the funding measure. So these two items relate to each other. There's a reason they're together. So there's my sort of long preamble about why you're hearing about these tonight. So now I'm going to shift gears, and I have to find my slideshow and make sure it's here. Bear with me for a minute. I got to open it up. I think this is the right one. Yep, okay. Okay. Can you share? Let me do this. Let's see. Hold on, I have too many windows open. Okay, then let me do this. Okay, now you see the whole slide, right? Okay. Okay, great. Hold on one sec. Oh, I just did it away, didn't I? Ooh, okay. Bear with me. We'll get back to it. I'm trying to open notes and open slides, but maybe it won't let me open notes. And if that's the case, then I will do it without notes. I think it won't let me. Okay. Great. So our active transportation plan was adopted by council, as I said, in February of 2018. Just, a little bit more background. Active transportation, as we defined it in the plan, really is, it's walking, it's biking, it's also anything kind of rolling on wheels, anything human powered. So, skateboarding, scootering. We also definitely want to think about people who use wheelchairs. That is active transportation. As well, transit is an active mode in a way, in that people walk and bike to take transit. So that's what this plan is thinking about. Why do we need this? Really, it's really fits with the city's vision for how to build Beaverton going on into the future. I think, you know, you're all here because you have a strong desire to improve cycling in Beaverton, and really that direction's also come from City Council. So the plan was developed over about a 2-year period. We had a grant that came from the state to help fund that work. And that was work that was led in the Transportation Planning Division. And as I said, it was before I got here, so I am not as in depth on this, but I will I'll walk you through the sort of the pieces and parts of it so that you have a good understanding of the organization. I'm just going to hold up. Here's my very beat up copy that I refer to often. It's a pretty thick document, but probably the first half or third of it is really the main content of the document itself, but there's a number of appendices from the work that was developed as the plan was being developed. So it's organized around sort of what's the vision for active transportation. There's a section that talks about how the plan was developed, what was the input that went into it. It then goes on to describe what's the future vision for this active transportation network, and really think about that word network because that's what we're building to. It's about how everything connects and how you access places throughout the city. There's a section about design approach and treatment. So there's a really great kind of a glossary or handbook in a way of different tools that we can use as we build improvements around the city. There's also a section about sort of the needs that are in the city to improve biking and walking, how those were evaluated, and then projects that are recommended in the plan. And then there's the final chapter is really on implementation. And I have a little bit of that to share with you this evening. I think there's more conversation we can have. I think, as I said, we've started some of the work, but there's a lot more that we can do. So our vision really thinks about, you know, these 3 things: so safety, comfort, and connectivity in our bicycling and walking network, and really thinking about trips up to 3 miles. That's a great sort of short trip. I think all of you probably know that as bike riders, that, you know, there's that's just a nice sort of right-sized trip for people to make if that's to help people sort of get over to the making biking and walking really a part of how they get around. There's a series of these 5 goals that really talk about access, equity, and sort of completeness of the system, getting people to where they want to go. Again, comfort is really important in terms of making the system work for all people, and having it be a place that invites more people to walk and to bike. Safety, of course, is a key goal. And then also just having a goal around kind of being smart about how we fund and implement the plan. There's also a list of 11 objectives. I'm not going to go through all of these, but it really starts to talk about, you know, how do we prioritize the work that we do? What are the types of improvements we should be building? Where should we be building them? Thinking about how we fund it, thinking about how much we might build in a year. And then again, just sort of more about promoting and helping to get more people out biking and walking. Okay, so a little bit more about how we develop the plan. There's sort of 3 key pieces. Oh, Corey, you have a question? I'll let you break in.
Yeah, I just had a question about the the 11 points on the previous page.
Yeah, yeah.
And I know it focuses around neighborhood bikeways, and we in Beaverton work a lot with THPRD for more like trails. Can you talk a little bit about how trails integrate into, not owned by the city, integrate into our active transportation plan?
Yeah, I want to say in the implementation section, we talk about partnering and how we partner with THPRD for one and implement trails. I think there's a recognition in the plan that they're a key part of the network. They're not something that, as you say, THPRD is the lead out here on the west side in trail design and construction and owning those facilities. So there's often, we've communicated often in my time here with THPRD as they're pursuing grant funds for trail projects. For those ones that are in Beaverton, we're often asked to, support those applications with letters coming from our elected officials or from our development director, so that it's included in a way. But again, THPRD is the lead on those. Does that kind of answer your question, Corey?
I think so. I guess part of me wonders why, or if the city could build more trails. And if the planning isn't being done cohesively, then it creates for a more fragmented system.
I want to hold that thought because I think there is, right, THPR has their trails. It's not a master plan, but they have THPRD has an adopted plan around trails for the whole of the west side within their district. And they're focused on implementing those. We partner a lot with them, just, you know how agencies partner across jurisdictions. So I'd be curious to hear if there's gaps in that network that aren't happening or need to get filled. So maybe we can have a trail conversation at some point in the future. And Bruce Barbarash, who leads most of that work, he comes here. He loves to check in with you guys, so we can have that conversation again and kind of maybe take a deeper dive. So let's do that. Michael.
Yeah, I noticed with the ATP, there are like very clear sort of quantifiable goals for annual benchmarks in terms of sidewalks and bikeways and stuff like that. I thought I have seen in the past like reports on how the ATP is being implemented, but is there a way for the general public to be like, oh, 10 miles of neighborhood bikeways were built in 2020 and here's where they are, or sort of see the sort of concrete implementation of the ATP as sort of outlined in the objectives?
Yeah. Okay. You're getting really far ahead in my presentation. I don't think you have seen an update that says how many miles we built in a year. As far as I know, one of the things that is in the implementation section speaks to performance measures and sort of the how are we doing? Are we making progress? And I don't have an update to share with you tonight, but we are pulling that information together. There's a list of priority projects in the active transportation plan. And so we've looked back at that and said, how are we doing on this list? Which of these have been completed, which still need to get done, which ones have funding, which ones don't. And so that's an area where we need the need to do more is even around the performance measures and the reporting out. So at this point, there isn't a place where you could go click and see how are we doing. That's just not something that's been reported. So this kind of going through all of this is a reminder of what we set out to achieve when council adopted this. So does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Great. Okay. Okay. Okay, so developing the plan. There are sort of three key pieces here: a plan and policy review, a lot of technical analysis, and then public engagement. So the plan and policy review that the team did really looked at, here's a very long list of adopted plans that we have here at the city of Beaverton. And the team looked at all of these really to get some context of like, well, what are all these other plans saying? What do we need to know that's in them that will help inform what we put into the active transportation plan? Some of them are you know, our very specific, our development code that guides all new development, new construction, our engineering design manual, which is our engineering design standards, the guide that we use to determine what we build in the roadway and how it looks. Larger policy documents, our transportation system plan, and then a number of area-specific plans, Creekside civic plans, Cooper Mountain, those are just a few. And then looking sort of more broadly at regional plans and even at the Oregon ped and bike safety implementation plan. So there's lots of plans out there that they looked at to get that context. And then the technical analysis looked at a number of data sets to really get a sense of, well, what do we have out in the network today? How can we describe it, and how do these things overlap and interconnect? So looking at sort of existing infrastructure, what bike and pedestrian facilities do we have? What are things that are already in plans? Looking at things like transit, looking at crash history. You know, here's a map that overlays sort of employment areas with transit service and kind of why to connect these two, really, because, right, access to transit to work and thinking about transit and, you know, really pretty much every trip on transit, most trips are as a pedestrian, some are on bike. So it's interesting to start to kind of see where those connections happen. They then put together sort of this vision of the future transportation network and thinking about a hierarchy, and you have to move this, but created what we call functional classifications for along the existing roadway and networks. Here's the bicycle functional class map, and really categorizing sort of our, if you look at sort of our major roadway facilities, those become sort of enhanced major bikeways. And then major bikeways are on our other sort of collectors, and then even the neighborhood bikeways, which follow along more local streets. So you could kind of go from the darkest, or really our most intense roadways, where really those are places where enhancing the facilities for bikes would be really key to making that that a functional facility. So, you know, creating these classification maps, and then thinking about what are the right design treatments necessary to help users feel safe and comfortable. So I don't know if any of you have seen this sort of a diagram before, but how it relates to this map is that on one axis is traffic volume. So this is the number of vehicles per day, up to 10,000 and beyond. And then this is what the posted speed is on a street. So you can basically take any street, once you know the traffic volume and you think about what the posted speed is, you can start to see what's sort of the minimum type of facility that is needed to help people feel safe and comfortable. And then that was mapped. So you can, again, start to see those major streets really pop out, saying a protected bike lane really is the right design. On other streets, you know, sharrows are the appropriate tool. Others, it's really about a wide bike lane with a buffer or something physically separated. So again, sort of taking a look citywide and mapping it. And then also on the for pedestrian and sidewalk treatments, really starting to find some sidewalk space, how to provide some spatial clarity in those sidewalk areas by describing what we call a frontage zone, just that sort of the area in the front of the building. You might see cafe tables here. A through zone, which is really, this is the space where we want pedestrians to have free of obstructions so that people can walk and roll through there safely. And that we call the furnishing zone or the curb zone. And that's where you see things like utility poles, street lights, benches, bike racks. And then what we'll call here the buffer zone. And this really starts to describe a space where you might say have a cycle track that's at the same level as the sidewalk zone. So giving some clarity around sort of in pedestrian districts, so say downtown Beaverton's a pedestrian district, what those dimensions should be on different types of streets, and then outside pedestrian districts, say maybe more in the neighborhood, what those dimensions should be. And I'm just going to pause and say, if anyone needs to interrupt me, I can no longer see you because I'm looking at the screen. So just to give a little shout out, okay? There's also included in the plan, there's a great, as I said, I'll call it sort of a glossary, a toolbox of different types of treatments that can be used to really help, again, get us towards that sort of safety and level of comfort in what we build, and protected intersections, bike signals, bike boxes, various pavement markings. All of these are tools that cities are using across the country, and these are all potential tools for Beaverton. And then again, back to the mapping, there was a mapping really thinking about where are the needs, where are places where having constructing a protected bike lane would get us to that level of improvement, or even just putting in a bike lane where one might not exist today. So mapping all those needs, and then evaluating them and scoring them across various factors around safety, demand, connectivity, the existing conditions, and also equity, and thinking about where low-income households are, where people of color live, youth and older people. So these were all weighted and scored, and kind of when you squint your eyes, you can see sort of the highest scoring street segments are those darker sort of red towards brown. The lowest are the darkest green. So things that start to pop out, Canyon Road for sure, and Farmington and Beaverton Hillsdale Highway, and even some other segments down here in South Beaverton, 217, looks like Butner Road. So you can start to kind of see the map, and that was a tool to sort of help to prioritize improvement. So there was sort of the all of the analysis that was done to help us get towards a project list. But first, I'll talk about touch on engagement. There was quite a bit of engagement throughout the process. There was a technical advisory committee of staff from City of Beaverton and other partner agencies, TriMet, I want to say Washington County, THPRD. There was also a community advisory committee that met throughout the process, and then a number of ways that people got to engage and learn more about the plan at events throughout the city and public open house. So lots of input went into it. And here's some of the key things that we heard from folks. Really, keep focused on developing this complete and connected system. Crossing improvements are an area of need, making sure it's safe for people to cross on while they're walking or biking. A real strong desire to provide those protected bicycle facilities. This clear focus on making walking and biking really a viable mode in Beaverton. And then this last one, really seeing a need to update the existing transportation system plan and how the active transportation plan sort of folds into that work. So those are some of the things that we heard from folks. And I'll just pause there before I get into the recommendations, and let me see if I can see all of you.
Jean, just to update folks, make sure you saw this. John Ratliff did point out in the chat that if anyone wants to check up on the current state of trails with the Parks Department, that THPRD does have writings about their new trail plans on their website, and folks can always head there.
Great. Thank you, John. Okay. Somehow I have lost seeing all of you. That little screen went somewhere. I'm going to keep going. Okay. back to the show. Okay, so there are recommendations in the plan around projects, programs, and I said implementation and action items for our next steps. So just specifically looking at bikeways, there were a series of neighborhood bikeways that were identified in sort of different quadrants of Beaverton. These are really low cost but high impact projects. They're already sort of low levels of bicycle stress facilities, streets. And those are primarily have been installing sharrows and wayfinding. So earlier when I was talking about how are we doing, what progress have we made, I know that some of these projects have been built and I'll come back with a list of those projects at a later meeting to report out. So. And then also there's some more detailed maps that describe both sidewalk and bicycle lane and sidewalk, bicycle lane, and crossing projects. They're organized by jurisdiction, and you can see those jurisdictions are: is it a Beaverton street, is it an ODOT street, or is it a Washington County street? And they're coded in a way on the map to identify those jurisdictions. And then also based on their evaluation score, and we've kind of tiered it into sort of high priority, medium priority, and low priority. And then for some, there's even sort of interim and preferred treatment. And Corey, back to your trail comment, we do on these maps show existing and future trails. So they were included in the plan, and they're so you can start to see how that how the network comes together. Let's see, I'm just saying, yeah, okay. John, thanks for your comment. I'm glad the trails have worked for you. So the roadway projects, or the sidewalk and bike lane projects, are in sort of strips, and then these crossings are the symbols on the map. So if you were to go look at the map, look at the plan online, you can start to see those projects, how they've been mapped. So the team did some, they had to estimate the cost of what would it take to build all of this, right? That's the big question. And back in 2017, when they developed these costs, it was $186 million to build all these projects. Just to complete those tiny projects, it's $26 million. So far more funding than we have available, but it really starts to highlight just the significant need that we have, and that can also just help us even more think about where priorities should land. And so in the plan itself, there's a series of tables, one for crossings, one for sidewalk projects, and one for bicycle treatments. And so here's just a snapshot of that table, and it relates to those projects that are on the map. And these were identified as, here are some top priorities. And as those opportunities have come up through funding opportunities and with City Council input and direction, this is sort of the where to start list. And again, I'll come back at a future meeting and share an update on this list in terms of how are we doing, and are we making progress on these. So that was the sort of the project look. The plan also talks about programs, and it really encourages the city to continue with programs we're already doing, consider other new ones, because it's not just about building projects and building the facilities, but it's also about the encouragement and education that needs to come along with it. So Safe Routes to Schools, and we're an active partner with Beaverton School District on that, but also education and community events like Bike Beaverton. And then it even also said, really kind of consider bike share as an option in the future for Beaverton. So the implementation section has quite a bit of detail about these 7 action areas that are listed below. And I'll come back at a later date and we can spend some more time to dive into them. But again, I'll go through them here, but updating the transportation system plan. So the active transportation plan is an adopted city plan but that transportation system plan really is our codifying document. It's part of our comprehensive plan. So there's policy recommendations in the active transportation plan, as well as these project lists that all need to get folded into the TSP. So that's an area of the work plan for the Transportation Planning Division this next year. That'll mean bringing a series of plan amendments to Planning Commission and City Council for their approval to make that official. So that's an important next step for the active transportation plan. We talked earlier about the performance measures, and there's a list of some potential performance measures for Beaverton to look to, not just how much are we building per year, but even things around measuring sort of people who are cycling. There's data sets out there that we can have access to that will really help us understand how many people are walking and biking for their commute trips and other trips throughout the city. So there's a number of, there's a whole range of performance measures we can look to track our progress towards our goals. I mentioned the engineering design manual earlier in our development code. Again, the plan has some really specific recommendations for designs that are really, again, going to help us advance this work. And having them in that engineering design manual will help us implement them both for our own city-led projects, but even for projects that are built through private development. Also talks about designing the system and funding and constructing it over time. So there's some information in the plan around funding resources, potential new funding resources, and even just thinking about how we prioritize work. I talked earlier about working with local and regional partners to implement the plan, and that's really, from ODOT, over the facilities that they own within Beaverton. TriMet's a partner with us on projects, Washington County, really funding that comes from the federal government through Metro. There's just a lot of coordination that happens and that can continue to happen. And then that last item really about continuing programming to support walking and biking, and those activities like Bike Beaverton, like having a bicycle advisory committee. Those are all really important to help keep us moving forward. So I think that might be the end of my show. So I'm going to stop sharing so I can actually see you all again. There you are. Hi. Okay. I'm not sure how we're doing on time. I think we're plenty fine. So any questions? Yes. Anybody have any thoughts to share? Yeah. Anything more you want me to come back with information for all of you? Any burning questions? I will say I definitely look to all of you as a key sounding board for how we keep this plan, propelling forward, and being advising City Council on how do we advance this work. I will tell you that for the past several years, Council has prioritized, building sidewalks. They recognize that there's a lot of places throughout Beaverton that walking is not, there aren't sidewalks that people can walk along. So we haven't had too many conversations in the past year or so about those projects. There's a few projects underway, but a lot more to do. So I know they would welcome hearing input from all of you.
Thank you for presenting that, Jean. That was very informative, honestly. So I really appreciate it personally. So that was very informative for me. I actually learned some of the stuff on there. So thank you. Good.
Good. Yeah. As I said, most of you have arrived on this committee after this plan was adopted. So it's good to go over it. I'm just going to go check the chat. John Vogler says a recent study by the state of New York found $3 in health-related benefits for every dollar spent on bike infrastructure. Yeah, health is a key part of what we get out of active transportation for sure. Thanks for sharing that. Yeah, and John Ratliff, thank you for your comments in the chat too about trails. And I think we've talked even in previous meetings with this group about how the trails network had a lot more traffic during COVID-19. For a lot of people, it's a place to go exercise. So that's great. Amanda is frozen. The storm may be passing over. The hurricane may be passing over where she is.
Nope, I'm active. I'm here.
Okay, good, great.
The floor is still yours for another 27 minutes. If you'd like to move on to the next topic.
Yeah, we'll do. Okay. Okay, let me go find that. I have it here. Okay. Okay, great. So the MSTIP, the Major Street Transportation Improvement Program from Washington County. Let me make this full screen. Okay, great. So as I said, this is a program that Washington County is the lead agency, but cities across the county also are participants in this program. And for those of you that don't know about this, it's a countywide property tax that goes towards improving major roads. Since it was first voted on back in 1986, more than 150 projects have been built through it, totaling over $900 million. It's in these 5-year funding cycles that get approved by the County Board of Commissioners. And it's one of multiple funding sources that we have here on the west side. And this, sort of three-legged stool drawing here talks about the sort of the 3 key funding sources that we have for transportation. So gas taxes really are our primary source for roadway maintenance. Development fees, what we have in the past called the TIF, we now call the TDT, the Transportation Development Tax, and other sort of local improvement district fees are paid through new development, new construction, and they're really there to address future needs or capacity, adding new capacity to the system. And that could be for vehicles, it could be for bicycles or pedestrians. And then this last one, our property taxes that we have that through the MSTIP program have been focused on solving congestion and safety problems. So the MSTIP process, it allocates this dedicated funding source. And right now we're at this place of sort of selecting projects, identifying where do we prioritize the funds that are collected that can be applied to roadway projects. These are projects that are identified through transportation system plans, or even the Beaverton or active transportation plan. Those projects are selected, and then as they move forward, they'll go through project development and then ultimately get designed and built. So here's just the list going back to 1986 with these voter-approved levies. And then in 1997, the MSTIP became part of the county's permanent tax rate. And then the decision-making shifted to the board. So that 3-1 became a B, a C, a D, an E, and now we're at letter F. So this is a map that is showing the current MSTIP, sort of the projects that have been built, overlaid on top of what we have mapped for our region, what Metro has mapped for a region, what we call equity areas of focus, where you see these colors where you have people of color or limited English proficiency, and low income residents. You're starting to see kind of where those folks live, and starting to see where those projects overlap. But you know, overall, the projects built a number of pedestrian and bicycle facilities, access management, signals, safety improvements, distributed across the county. You know, it's created jobs, it's improved access, places where people want to go, to jobs and schools. And it's also helped us keep up with growth. We've added since between 1986 and 2019, we've added 326,000 people in Washington County. So it's been a really helpful funding source for Washington County and the jurisdictions within it to really respond to the growth that we've had. Our current 3E program was approved in 2016 at about $35 million a year. Here's this list of kind of the projects that's funded. 160 million towards 23 specific projects. There's also money that was set aside for rural bridges, funding that was set aside for what we call the Opportunity Fund, which is a fund of potential matching funds, as so county or jurisdictions within it are seeking grant funds from federal government, other opportunities that come up the state. It's a source to find those sometimes really difficult to find matching funds when we're applying for grants. And then $500,000 was set aside for intelligent transportation system enhancement. This is sort of signal technology and improvements that help us manage and operate the roadway really towards efficiency and safety. So most projects in the 3E program are underway and several are even complete. And here's a map of those 3E projects. So you really can see, you know, where you see these yellow dots and lines, quite a bit of geographic distribution around the county. So this was the eligibility criteria for the 3E program, improving safety and traffic flow. It has to be on a major road that's used by many residents. That's that major streets part of the program, and addressed really multimodal demands, and again, geographic distribution. So this is this map that we talk about, the system of county-wide interest. And this map shows the roadways that are eligible to have the MSTIP funds. So you can start to see eligible arterials and eligible collector streets throughout the county. So the 3E process, when that was adopted, the board provided direction on approach. Project lists were solicited and evaluated with support from city staff. The Washington County Coordinating Committee, the WCCC, that's a group that includes a representative from the county board and then a representative from each of the jurisdictions within Washington County, typically the mayors. In Beaverton, our current representative is Councilor Mark Sansucci. So the Washington County Coordinating Committee, they advanced a series of recommendations to the board, what we call a 150% list, meaning we know how much revenue we expect to collect, and the list was equal to about 150% of that expected revenue. Sought public input and made a recommendation to get down to that 100% list. And that's the program that we have in place today. So now I'm shifting gears to looking ahead. This is why I'm sharing this information with all of you, because I think you guys will be have great opportunity to provide input on the types of projects that we want to see built in Beaverton. So for the 3F program, again, these same previous criteria that we have in place, but the county is now saying, let's go get public input on those priorities and let's confirm what those priorities are and what's important as we build the transportation system over the next 5-year cycle. So there'll be, the county staff will be engaging with the cities through Washington County Coordinating Committee and as well as at the Transportation Advisory Committee, which is staff from all the jurisdictions, and also looking to define some of those programmatic set-asides that I mentioned earlier. So revisions to this approach, again, they're wanting to think this time now really about, well, what are the desired outcomes? What do we want to see? How are we going to evaluate our recommended package? And so that's a place where there's an opportunity to give input. The county will be expanding that direct engagement with the board and the city councils, and also, as I said, be doing some community-based input. They are talking about expanding these evaluation metrics for public health and safety. So John, your comment about public health really is right in line with that. Thinking about where we spend our dollars and the health outcomes that we get. They'll also take the step to update cost assumptions for the projects to meet new design standards. If you remember several months back, you heard from Aaron Wardell at Washington County about the county's new complete street design standards. That's part of the reason to do these cost updates. And then also just kind of revisiting their revenue forecast. It's helpful to know how much in property tax do we think that the county will collect that can go towards the program. So here are some key things that the counties will be doing in their work as they move ahead. And then here's some proposed milestones for this work right now. Here we are in summer 2021, confirming the work plan and priorities. In the fall, they're going to be initiating that project solicitation and looking to the cities to identify those projects. In winter, they'll have that 150% list out for public comment. And that'll be another opportunity for all of you to engage. And then really aiming towards next summer, having the board adopt the 3F program and that next 5-year set of projects and priorities. Here's a little more detail in terms of each of these milestones, really confirming these outcomes. The county plans on starting with their goals from their transportation system plan, the key areas around livability, natural environment, economic vitality, and safety. But they're also saying we need to really think about equity with this next round of MSTIP. So how they're going to be really thinking about how they incorporate that into the decision making. And again, community input around the work plan and the values and the outcomes. Milestone 2 around the project solicitation. They're going to review these general guidelines for where do these projects come from. And I think in Beaverton, not only is it something in our adopted TSP, but I think we'll also be looking for projects in our active transportation plan. Confirming those metrics for how we evaluate these projects to make a decision about which ones are the right ones to include. Setting financial targets, and again, through that engagement piece will happen through Milestone 2. Milestone 3 is really releasing that 150% list for public comment. There'll be lots of different ways, I think, for people to solicit, for the county to solicit input. And then again, the WCCC will make their recommendation and the board will approve that 150% list for input. And then looking ahead to next summer, it'll all come together in terms of evaluating that public comment and doing technical evaluation of the project, confirming all the costs and the revenue that we expect, and then developing that 100% project list to take to the board to adopt. These are some next steps sort of in the next, well, we're already in July. This show is a couple months old. So I will tell you that City Council next week has an action item to approve a letter to send to the County Board of Commissioners with some initial input around soliciting input from City Councils around their priorities and goals. And then there'll be a work session August 17th at City Council where county staff is going to come and present their work plan to City Council and solicit input from them. So we're just at the beginning of this process. I think the next year is going to go pretty quickly. And I want to get all of you sort of thinking about this ahead and have us, have you all sort of be ready at the key places when it's time to give your input and give your advice to City Council, that you're ready for that. So that's the end of the show. If you want me to go back to anything, I can bring it back up, but I'll stop there and ask if you have any questions or thoughts or comments, or you can also think about it for a little while. We'll talk about it again at a future meeting.
Jean, I'm still trying to wrap my head around what the 150% figure means. I was just wondering if you would dig into that a little, because in my head, budgets shouldn't really go above 100%, but.
Yes, it's, they don't. When they get to the end, we will have a 100% list. So we're going to have, every city, they're going to look at their TSPs and whatever plans they have that they've adopted to say, what are the projects that we feel qualify for this program, that fit within the major street sort of category of funding that we'd like to use this funding source for. Everyone will put their projects in on the list. We'll end up with the list that's probably, I don't know, 200%, 300%, who knows how big that list will be, of the total funding available. There's this technical level of work that staff will do, public input will come in, and the goal to get to that 150% list is to at least refine the big list down to something that a little bit more manageable and discernible to take out for public input, to say, tell us what your priorities are, so that we can then take that 150% and winnow it down to 100%. So that 100% final list matches the projected revenue. So start big, winnow it down to meet the goals of the program. Okay, you're nodding your head, so I think you followed. Yeah, we end up with 100. Yeah, it's pretty typical. We see this a lot with grant programs, actually. It's the same sort of thing. A lot of agencies will apply for a grant. ODOT has several programs where local jurisdictions can apply. They are way, as we say, over-programmed, meaning there is way more need than the funding that's available. And so we talk about these 200% lists, 150% list, 100% list, as we winnow and narrow that down to get to sort of that final recommendation for the board to approve.
I don't see anything in the chat. I don't see any hands raised, but we're still 10 minutes ahead. We've got plenty of time for additional discussion or questions. Michael?
Yeah, thanks for the overview, Jean. I was curious, do you have any, I guess, do you have any sort of examples of projects that came out of MSTIP within Beaverton that sort of falls within our wheelhouse?
Yes. I'm thinking of a couple of current projects. So MSTIP funding, for those of you that have been around pre-COVID, I believe you saw the Allen and 92nd project, which connects 92nd Allen to Shoals. Sorry, I'm trying to get my bearings. It's a project that we've been designing that has the roundabout, if that helps ring any bells. Yes, that project. So that does have some MSTIP funding. There's several different sources of funding, which is also really common in transportation projects, particularly common in active transportation projects. We might get a grant from the state, and we have some MSTIP, and we have a little bit of our own local transportation fund that we use to develop these projects. There is a project that you haven't heard about yet, but you will at some point in the next year, which is our Milliken Way extension project. So that's a project that we currently have out for an RFP to select our consultant team to work with us for the planning, and then design and construction of that project. So that project will go from Watson to Lombard to realign and rebuild Milliken. So if you know that stretch, it's just east of City Hall. And it's a segment of the road where in places there's no sidewalks. I don't even know if we have sharrows. We have sharrows in some places along there. We do have sharrows. But it's currently for vehicle traffic dead ends. Before it gets to Lombard, there's Beaverton. One of the creeks flows right through there. And the street does not go through. It's right, and it basically would go into the transit center if you kept going. And we built a few years back a little bicycle and pedestrian path to connect you to Lombard. The longer term vision for that street is to have it connect all the way through to Lombard for vehicles and walking and biking, and rebuild that street to be a complete street. So that's a project that has a little over $9 million of MSTIP funds, and we're just about to kick off the planning phase for that work. So there's a pretty big sizable project in downtown. So I can't think of any other projects off the top of my head, but that's just because I haven't been here long enough to like rattle them off. But I'd be happy I can come back with a list of what we've used MSTIP for here in Beaverton. So happy to do that and share that with you all. Just to give you the context, is that what you're really looking for, Michael? Like, what is it funded and what is it funded that is near and dear to the Bike Advisory Committee?
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
Thank you, Jane.
Yeah, yeah.
We still have 6 minutes before moving on. Any other hands raised, questions in the chat? So far, I'm not seeing anything. All right, if you think of something, feel free to bring it up when we get to member comments. So no immediate pressure. So let's move on to the City Council annual report. Of course, we have to give a report to City Council every year. I think we're planning on Mike Mulligan as our chair giving that report this year. But in preparation for that, we need to get a presentation put together to show to City Council. And so we have this agenda item tonight to just try to brainstorm what sorts of things do we want City Council to be aware of. This could be a place for us to talk about, maybe changes we've been making to Bike Beaverton, projects we have going on. Are there any topics that we want to be 100% sure they have eyes on, that are important to us or we need to advance? This is brainstorming time. So Jean and Mike and I and anyone else know how to proceed with our presentation. Anyone?
I will say I do have, oh, go ahead, John.
Oh,
go ahead, John.
I beg your pardon, go ahead.
I was just going to say I have our notes from last time. If anybody wants me to bring it up on screen, or if you want to go to the notes yourself, we have what we talked about last time. That will help sort of spark any new ideas. That's all. So, John, go ahead.
Is this like a list of accomplishments or things to work on? I'm thinking like safe routes to school, our support of that. Are we looking for like a retrospective or a kind of a forward-looking document?
John, I would say in the past, at least the one that I saw in 2019, I would say it's a bit of both. It's here's things that we've done, and it is looking forward. That presentation, I think I shared it with all of you. I shared it last month's meeting, and I shared it with all of you over email too. The PowerPoint that a big focus was on the League of American Cyclists, our certification in that program as a gold city, or are trying to get to be a gold city. But that doesn't have to necessarily be the focus this time. It can really be what you all see as sort of the key priorities for all of you.
Okay, so just in the category of brainstorming, just throwing out some ideas, we made some recent inputs related to the Highway 26 bridge that I thought were good and relevant and effective, hopefully. And then some people participated in the Safe Routes to School bike rodeo thing. You know, let's keep going. There, I think, are a number of things that we did that were helpful and that may help inform the report, you know, by Mike to the City Council.
Any other ideas? Are we going to put MSTIP prioritization on the list? Have I wowed you all with the importance of this great funding tool that we have in Beaverton? Any other thoughts? You know, I will. One thing I'll say is we didn't do this last year because we met, because of COVID, we hardly met. We met about half as many times as we should have. And I think a lot of the other boards and commissions also, I think many also skipped their presentation. We were all given sort of a pass. So there's even, I would say there's a bit probably to reflect on, you know, I'm remembering at the beginning of the pandemic, I feel like you all did some maps, some routes, and we put those online. So that's also something we could highlight. And even I think it may be, and I'm trying to think, I don't think we've had anyone from THPRD share a report to council when I think about the activity that we've seen on the trails in the last year, how much people, anecdotally from John, our guest tonight, but we also heard that, I think, from Bruce Barbarash at THPRD. He commented on, I think we've all acknowledged the trails have a lot of use. So even though it's not a city facility, it's a key part of the network. I think that would be of interest to the council to know, you know, here's what people use when we're all in lockdown and trying to get out and get exercise.
I do think it might be useful to council if we include, as you mentioned, an overview of our virtual Bike Beaverton event where we had those routes that were posted to the internet, and then maybe also recap for them how we decided to move what time of the year we were having Bike Beaverton, so then they can put that on their mental calendars in relation to all of the usual summer activities.
Yep. Great. Okay. Well, I'll just say the presentation itself is really like a 5 to no more than 10-minute presentation. So, you know, we don't have to, it doesn't have to be broad and expansive. You know, it can be pretty succinct. So as Amanda said, you know, it'll be something that Mike will deliver, and you're all welcome to be there and you know, participate and show your support and be there for the discussion with the council. We've not scheduled anything yet. I think we're just looking very far ahead. The last time we did it was in the fall. I think it was an October presentation. So we've got some time to pull that together. So Amanda and I will talk with Mike again and we can share these little tidbits because it's a good list of activities that we can share. And then, you know, Amanda, I think I'm going to suggest that maybe Mike think about bringing a draft or an outline at August, and then maybe the September meeting is a dry run, and then maybe we think about an October council date. It's just, I'm mapping it out. That might work.
Yeah, a good time to put together the draft might be when you and Mike and I have the agenda setting meeting and we just pad it a little so we can have something to show the rest of the committee that we can get their input on. Yep, John, exactly. So we can connect with Bruce to see about the trail counts and his data about the cyclists on the trails. Yep.
Absolutely. And then I'm looking further up in the chat, and then John also asked from a former member. Thank you, John. Any thoughts about going for the gold designation with the League of American Cyclists? So I will tell you that we are we're currently a silver designated city. It's a 4-year, every 4 years you have to renew, and that renewal cycle comes up next year. So that's another activity that's in my team's work plan to bring that out and refresh that. I will say I'm not sure. I'm not sure if we've made enough progress towards gold based on the feedback that they gave us, but that's something we'll definitely look at. So I know that's something that the BAC had a lot of input in last time, and yeah, we'll be looking at that in the next year. Okay, John wants a Western Avenue project update, but I'll save that for my city update.
Is there any value in our report in having a slide that maybe lists the other agencies and groups of folks that have come to our meetings to discuss things with us? Yeah. Just to show the scope of who we're able to provide feedback to?
I think so. Yeah, I think so. Okay. Great. Okay. Oh, John, you wrote the silver application. You wish you could help out. Thank you. Okay, John, I'll be in touch. Thanks for that. Okay. Are we good?
Any other thoughts about city council? All right. Jean, if you have John's email address. Oh, no, wait, Michael, yes.
So it sounds like we've got a lot of the things we talked about tonight are sort of looking back and recapping a lot of what we've worked on. And I guess sort of, I'm thinking of what else can we put in the bucket of going forward. There is definitely the lab application, but is there anything else that's sort of percolating that we might be able to sort of throw in there as well, or any sort of, maybe moonshot ideas that people have at the moment?
John Vogler wrote one in the chat, Bikeway to Hillsborough. John, do you want to articulate that more? Can I call on you?
You put me on the spot. I don't know, moonshot ideas. I have always dreamed of an eventual connection of Portland all the way to the coast. And part of that, there are people working on that, by the way. There's the Council Creek Trail from Hillsborough out to Banks. There's the Seminary Trail. Imagine eventually a trail that links Portland all the way to the coast. So what's a logical connection? Beaverton to Hillsborough. And we've got a great stretch of railroad track that has a wide right of way. It's 50 feet from center line in most areas and 100 feet from center line in some areas. So there's plenty to work with there, but it's a huge project that would involve so much more than just Beaverton, but it's one of those moonshot ideas that would make a real difference in 20 years or 40 years. So I just put it out there in response to Michael's moonshot input.
Good comment from Cara in the chat, reminding us that we do have some new members in the city council. So giving them a good background slide about scope and introductions for what we're all about could be very helpful to them. Any further thoughts or discussion? All right, we'll move on to the next agenda item. And when we loop back to member comments, if you think of anything, please bring it up. So we are going to move on to City of Beaverton updates.
Okay, hi folks. Usually I email you these updates before our meeting, and then tonight I got to tonight and I realized I hadn't emailed them to you yet. So I'll email them to you after the meeting, but here are the highlights. One is that the 2021-2022 fiscal year budget is approved. So City Council adopted our budget for this year that started July 1 on June 15th. The budget is approximately $441 million. It's about $10 million more than last year's. Let's see, the budget reflects completion of several capital projects and also anticipates revenue from stimulus and other programs such as CARES funding, the American Rescue Plan Act, and the Water Infrastructure Finance and Innovation Act. So Beaverton was fortunate to get quite a bit of funding allocated to it through the federal funding that's been coming down to all the counties and cities across the country. We're really excited for that. Notable expenses include the construction of the Patricia Research Center for the Arts and our new district serving public parking garage right adjacent to the research, our housing affordability programs, sustainability efforts, and then water and street improvements. So you can always learn more if you go to beavertonoregon.gov/budget. We also have a reminder about saving water this summer. In Beaverton, water consumption is its highest in the summer. It's often doubling or even tripling. So reducing your outdoor water use has the biggest impact. Water smart by adjusting your sprinkler heads or watering in the early morning or evening, late in the evening. If you want a full list of water saving tips, you can go to beavertonoregon.gov/water, including indoor conservation and how to stop leaks around your home. Let's see. And then you may have heard in the news about the national chlorine shortage that's affecting water supply systems. It's really just heightening our conservation attention. We receive most of our water from the Joint Water Commission's water treatment plant, which relies on chlorine. So conserve your water, please. And then lastly, the Beaverton Night Market is back, and it's in a new location. So we did not have the night market last year. We will have it this year. It's going to take shape on the streets of downtown Beaverton at Southwest 1st and Tucker on Friday, August 13th and Saturday, August 14th. So in addition to vendors and performers and designated food courts, the night market this year will also feature a collaboration with La Strada dei Pastelli Chalk Art Festival. So come downtown, enjoy Beaverton in the evening, and go see some great chalk art. So if you go to beavertonoregon.gov/night market, that's all one word, you can find out more. This event is free. And lastly, I just wanted to share with all of you, and it's funny because Bike Beaverton came up. I reached out to our events manager just in this last week to say, hey, it might be a little bit early, but it's never too early to start talking about Bike Beaverton. The events team is starting to plan for, sort of post-COVID events, and I will be meeting with that team probably sometime in the next few weeks just to get the ball rolling and invite them to come and talk with all of you. And as Amanda said, we had just before COVID, we were planning on shifting Bike Beaverton to being a springtime event. So I think that's what we'll plan on doing in 2022. And we'll have more to share with all of you here soon. So, great. Those are my updates.
Well, the next thing on our agenda is member comments, and we are running fast. So does anyone from the committee have anything to say? Any questions you've thought of since the beginning of the night, etc.?
Yes, I do. So this last Wednesday, I volunteered for a bike rodeo that happened at Aloha High School. And I wanted to share with all of you that it was just me and one other person there handling all of the kids. And I wanted to share that this next Wednesdays, and then also on August 14th, I believe, no, not August 14th, July 14th, August 4th, still had a 4 in it. July 14th and August 4th are going to be 2 other days that they're doing these bike rodeos and have very slim volunteer counts. And so anything that we can do, it's a inconvenient time. It's in the middle of the day. It's like 10:30 to 12:30. So it's like right in the middle of the workday. But like even just like a 30-minute lunch popping over to do it would be super helpful. And the kids were, again, just like last time, as those of us that were able to go to the last one can attest, so grateful and had so much fun just like ripping around on their bikes or on their scooters or whatever method of conveyance or active transportation they wanted to use to get around the courses. So highly recommended, specifically for the 14th and the 4th. If you can carve out a few minutes to pop over, it would be great.
Thanks for promoting that. It is so tough to figure out how to carve out time in the middle of the workday weeks in advance, but I do encourage anyone on the committee, if you happen to have that time free, it's definitely like a life-affirming volunteer opportunity. I had so much fun when I went after work. Was it last month we were there, I think? Yeah. Jean, can you please be sure to include the bike rodeo announcement with our next committee email, just so folks can save that if they need the dates?
Yep, for sure.
Thanks.
For sure.
Yep, Michael.
I guess this is basically a question directly for Jean, but I've started noticing, I'm not sure what you call them, the sort of speed measuring tools that municipalities lay across roads to gather the speed or volume of traffic out on 5th and Main and some other locations around downtown. I was curious, is that part of like the Loop project, or is that something unrelated? Yeah, just out of curiosity on my end.
Yeah, those tubes, right? The hose counts. I call them hose counts. Right, where you see those 2 black tubes that are like nailed into the pavement with a little box on the side. Those are counting vehicles, and they collect speed, and some can even collect the number of axles, so you can distinguish between vehicles and trucks. So the city of Beaverton actually has historically, over many years, collected traffic counts in the summer months all around town. And so I'm guessing if you just saw it recently, I'm guessing that was one of our hose counters as part of our sort of historic tracking over time data set. What I don't know, I know how to access that data. What I don't know is if it's publicly accessible. And I'm just going to go check, because I believe that indeed it is. And we put them into tables, and we also have an interactive map. Okay, since we're ahead of time, I'm going to have a little fun here and show you all. where you go get this. Okay, no, not it, hold on. There we go. Now are you seeing it?
Yes.
So if you go to, I'm not sure about the 323, but here's the website and I'll put it in the chat. It's under Public Works Transportation Traffic Counts. So we collect these 24-hour counts all over town. You know, we publish the data, but we make no warranty or anything about it. Use at your own risk. But it looks like we go back to 2014 in these tables. I'm gonna click on this map and see where it takes me. But you can zoom in and click on the data that we have. So it'll tell you the street name, when the count was taken. Are you still seeing my screen? Yes. With the map. The direction of number of vehicles by direction, combined count, and who took the data. So it's out there. You can go poke around and look in your own neighborhood and see when we last took a count. So helpful?
Yeah, I had no idea
interesting.
that data was there. That's really cool.
Yeah, here, I'll put the link in the chat. Anything else? Any other random questions to ask Jean this evening? Okay.
If there's nothing else, then we'll adjourn the meeting 11 minutes early. I'm not seeing anything in the chat with questions. I'm not seeing any raised hands. Okay, then we are adjourning today's meeting at 8:19 p.m. Pacific time. And when is our meeting next month? Regularly as scheduled, Jean?
Regularly as scheduled on Thursday, August 12th.
Yep. All right. In that case, good night, everybody. Thank you for hosting us, Megan.
Thank you.
See you all soon.